Good morning, guys. Today is June 16th. It is a Monday. We are starting week 3 of summer school. And I am here a little bit earlier than I usually am. I usually come like about 5 minutes before the kids get here. Today I got here about 30 minutes. And that's just because we are switching gears for summer school. So what we learned in the first half of summer school transitions into something else during the second half of summer school. I think I've talked about that before. But if I didn't, we're transitioning what we're learning in math and in ELA for summer school. So for math, when we started out, we were learning about multiplication and measurement, and more specifically area. So for our task arcs, they were all about area. First, it was like, how can I find the area of this rectangle? Now find the area of this rectangle. How can I use multiplication to find the area? And then we moved into comparing area. Who has greater area? Who has a lesser area? How do we know? From there, we moved into finding missing dimensions. So here's the area of the figure. Here's the length. What's the width? Or here's the width. What's the length? So using a little bit of division for that, or knowing your multiplication facts. And then we moved into finding the area of irregular figures. So taking those figures, chopping them up into rectangles, and using what we know about rectangles to find the total area of that irregular figure. So that was the task arcs. All of that stuff was in their blue books, and I call them blue books because the cover I made for them were blue. They took their blue books home, and then today they'll get their green books. Their green books is what we will use when we start talking about fractions. So from now on out, we'll be looking at comparing fractions. So what fraction is larger, what fraction is smaller, and we'll be using models to represent that. We'll be then moving into equivalent fractions. So what fractions that have a different denominator, but they'll equal to the same part or piece. And then from there, we'll move into fractions on a number line, and then mixed numbers or mixed fractions where the numerator is greater than the denominator. So we'll be working on that in our task arcs. In our green book for Math for Love, we'll also be switching into fractions as well. We'll be using a lot of Questionnaire rods and a bunch of questioning for that. We'll still be working on word problems. We'll still be playing different math games, but the teaching focus of it will be on fractions and using Questionnaire rods to help with that. So that's what our transition is for math. So in ELA, we're also doing a little transition. The first 2 weeks, we talked about the wolf in fiction. So we read a bunch of different traditional stories, some fables, some folk tales that had a wolf as a character. And so we talked about, we're reading all these different books. What are some things that we notice about the wolf in every single book? What are some character traits that we come up with? And here are some traits that we came up with for the wolf in fiction. So we did disguised, cunning, jealous, hungry, and gullible, and we kind of wrote out what those meant. We also have done some narrative element charts with a couple of our stories. So we went through on these together and talked about, the setting, who the characters are, what's the problem, what's the solution, and then our last 2 stories they read, they just did them independently in their workbook, and then we talked about it afterwards. So for the stories we read, Lon Popo, we did The Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, we've done Fox and Wolf, and we've done The Wolf and the Lean Dog. So we also did some character analysis charts on the wolf and some other characters in those stories. So we mapped it out by our character, and then what their motivations were. What did they want? What did they say? What did they think? How did they feel in that story? There was an actions column that listed the things that they did throughout the story. We had some different character traits that would describe that character, and at the bottom, the result, what happened to them at the end of the story. So we did that with the wolf in a couple of stories, as well as the other main character, whether that was the lean dog, whether that was the fox, whether that was the sisters in Lon Popo. So we did a lot of character traits and mapping with that. We're now transitioning into our informational text. So we will today start with this National Geographic book, Face to Face with Wolves. And we're really just talking about, okay, so here's what we've been talking about so far about the wolf in fiction. Here's how the wolf is in these stories, these made up stories. And now let's talk about how wolves are in real life. And so we'll really look at how wolves are. We'll talk about what we know about wolves in real life using the text. And then we'll talk about author's point of view, or what the author is trying to relate to us. What does the author want us to know about wolves? And the big idea for this is that the author wants us to know that wolves are social animals. And we've also been working on opinions in the fiction side of it as well. So we've been talking about with the character traits, a lot of their opinion writing is sentence level so far. And it's just, I think the wolf is this character trait because, and then giving that evidence, they're still providing evidence, but we're scaffolding them up from sentences to a paragraph. So at the end of summer school, they'll write that opinion paragraph. We've also been having a part of our day called the Art of the Sentence, where we talk about sentence structure. And so the first half, we really talked about sentences versus fragments. And then these last 2 weeks, we'll talk about sentences versus run-ons. So when you're writing a sentence and you don't add that punctuation, you just keep going and keep going. How to notice that, what to do when we notice that, how to fix that. But that's pretty much it. So I am going to set you guys down. I'm going to go ahead and finish up with their green notebooks. So I think I still have 2 more that I need to make. I'm going to start making my posters for today and the rest of this week, and then put the board up about 20-ish minutes before the kids come. So I'm going to try to get that finished before they get here. What's up, guys, and welcome back. Today is Friday, June 20th. I think the last time I checked in with you guys was on Monday, which was when we started week 3. We're now at the end of week 3. So I'm gonna give you a quick little recap of what's been going on this week, what we have planned for next week. And then I've had someone ask a question on my last video about how our summer school works. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that as well. So just to kind of give you first a recap of the week. On Monday, we started our new text, which is an informational text. It is Face to Face with Wolves. And so we've read parts of the book and did close reads of the book to talk about who is the wolf in fact. And we talked about facts as being real or true information. So we spent some time talking about certain facts about wolves. Wolves live in packs. The packs consist of the alpha pair and their offspring. Wolves are social animals, how they communicate with each other, all that stuff. And we have a poster somewhere over here that lists all that stuff. Very similar to how we did the wolf in fiction, where we listed off character traits. We just listed off facts about wolves in fact. So for ELA, we've been working on that. We've been really focusing on finding text evidence, which is going to be very critical for what we're going to be doing next week. I'll get into that a little bit more later on in the video, but we've really been focusing on reading passages, finding text evidence to justify our answers to questions. In math, we've been talking about fractions, so equivalent fractions, fractions on a number line. We kind of hit a little bit, but we had to put a pause on it because of what's coming up. Again, I'll get into that just a little bit later. But for math, we've just been really hitting, like I said, those core concepts of area, multiplication, and fractions. We've been using Cuisinart to talk about like halves, thirds, sixths, eighths, tenths, and really using those Cuisinart as a manipulative tool to really talk about those fractions and how they work within each other, how we can compare them, which one's greater, which one's less than, which ones are equivalent, and just really honing in on our drawings of fractions, because I think that's the biggest thing that's holding our kids back. When they're given the drawing, they can really see which ones are greater than or less than, but when they're having to draw those figures on their own, especially when they're two different, have two different denominators or cut into two different amounts, that's where it gets tricky for them. Like if we were to compare 2/5 versus 2/3. That tears them up every time, which we also have some different tricks and stuff to know, but a lot of them can't remember those tricks where it's like if the denominators are the same, the one with the bigger numerator is more, or if the numerators are the same, the one with the smaller denominator is greater than, and that's just because the pieces are bigger. Those little tips and tricks, but for the kids here in summer school, they're not really getting that piece, so we're having to go back to those concrete models of that. And again, like I said, them drawing it is very difficult, and because their drawings are a little bit skewed, that in turn doesn't help with their conceptual understanding of fractions. So, but like I said, we've been using Cuisinart. We've also been using fraction tiles that are labeled with those unit fractions on there. So I have class sets of those that were given for our district for summer school. So as I said, we've been hitting that all this week. Now, today I did kind of take a little bit of a turn on the ELA just because next week is our last week of summer school. I cannot believe it. But with that comes all of our end of the year testing. And so we have a ELA test that we're taking next Tuesday. We have a math test that we're taking next Wednesday. And on that Monday, I'm still having to give some assessments. So on Monday for math, I'm actually doing our Math for Love post test. I don't know where it is, but it's basically like 16 questions that again just go over core concepts of third grade math. So we'll talk a little bit about arrays, multiplication. There will be word problems on there, problems about fractions, problems about area, problems about money, multi-step word problems are on there. It's just to kind of see like how they've progressed throughout summer school. So they did a pre-test on it the first day of summer school, but next week I'm going to have to do it on Monday just because I also have to do some other tests. I have to do fluency tests during our intervention time, so that'll take up that time. For math, I'm still doing some math lessons on the days that I'm not doing the test on Monday or Wednesday. So Tuesday I'll be testing ELA. Let me actually back up. Monday. Monday for math, we're doing our Math for Love post-assessment, which is one of 2 curriculums that we're using for math this year for summer school. For ELA, I am taking some read work articles about wolves, some non-fictional texts, and practicing answering questions and going back and finding text evidence. We actually did that today with one ReadWorks article. We're going to do that again on Monday before they take their test on Tuesday. So that's what we're doing on Monday. On Tuesday at 8 a.m. as early as we can, we're going to be taking our ELA end of summer assessment. And so what that is that it's basically a test that's given by the state. It is I think it's SchoolNet. Yeah, it is SchoolNet, which I think is owned by Pearson. It's the same test they did with their TCAP retake. So if we go back, we did our TCAP test in April. We got our test scores back at the end of May. If a kid did not score meets or exceeding, they took the online retake, which is a SchoolNet-based assessment. That was our pre-test for summer school. And now they're going to take another version of that test next week just to see if there's progress. Now, for summer school, kids, most kids in K through 6 in our district are not required for summer school. It's optional. The only grade where it has optional kids are 3rd grade, and even then, not all kids are required to come. So some of our kids are required to come based on their scores, and some kids are still coming just because their parents want them to come. So I'm only speaking specifically of the kids that are required to come. So the kids are required for 3rd grade have to come 15 out of the 16 days. And if they miss a day, if they miss more than one day, they can miss at least one day. If they miss 2 or more days, they have to make up those ones on a Friday. Now, for them, they can only miss 3 days because we only have 3 Fridays that they can make up. The first week, the second week, not this week because this week we were off Thursday, so we had to come Friday for Juneteenth. And then next week, they could make up a day if they missed next Friday. So they're required to come 15 out of 16 days, and that's because they did not meet proficient on our TCAP score, so they need to come at the majority of the days for summer school to try to make up for that. Now, when they take this post-test on SchoolNet, they have to score a certain amount of points higher than they did on the retake to be considered as growth, to show that summer school actually worked. From my understanding, if they show that growth, they're fine. If they don't show that growth, which the state comes up with how much they have to grow. It has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my school, nothing to do with my district. It is based solely on what the state wants them to do. So I don't even know what their scores were coming in. So I have no clue what their scores need to be coming out. And that's something that they don't even share with me. So I wouldn't know even if I wanted to. But they have to score a certain number of points higher than they do when they took the test back in May. So like I said, if they do hit that point, they are good. They're able to move on to 4th grade and there's no other repercussions. If they don't meet those growth points, from my understanding, from what we were told last week, they will have to either continue on with tutoring or their kids still get retained, I think. Do not quote me on that. I should probably take this out this video because I know that somebody's going to take it and run with it. But I think that's what they said. But the state handles all that stuff, and so I'm gonna let them handle that. So Tuesday we have our ELA test. Because we're doing our ELA test, I'm not doing ELA on that day. We're gonna do math afterwards. And that'll just be, honestly, just the math games that we've done so far with Math for Love. They have a ton of games that they have, which the kids love playing. And so I'm just gonna have that day for them to just play the math game that you want to your heart's desire. You know, kids are already stressed out about the tests and all that stuff. So enjoy the rest of the day with that. On Wednesday, we'll kind of flip it. So we'll still take another assessment. This time it's SchoolNet for math. There's not really a precursor for this because there is no like retention thing going on with the math. So I guess just to kind of see like where they're at now. So that's that. Because we're doing math test on Wednesday morning, that afternoon we'll do ELA, which we'll just come back to face-to-face with the Wolves and read one last bit of it and do some questions and responses to that. And then Thursday will be our last day of summer school. And I know it's going to sound really cliche, but we are going to have a pajama party and a movie day. And honestly, the only reason, well, there's 2 reasons why. Number one is because literally every day next week, they're going to be taking some type of test or assessment. And that's not even to do like my other assessments, because they're taking these SchoolNet assessments and this post assessment for Math for Love, but I'm also doing fluency reads on them and giving them progress on that, because we did a fluency pretest at the beginning of summer school, and then we're gonna do it at the end just to see how their fluency has built on throughout summer school as well. So even during intervention time, we'll still be testing. So these kids will be doing a post test, fluency test, a SchoolNet test, 2 SchoolNet tests, and another practice test in ELA on Monday. So they'll be doing 5 tests in 3 days. They're gonna need a break. And so we're gonna have a PJ and movie party. I'm gonna bring popcorn and they can bring their PJs and a blanket and a pillow, and we're just gonna have fun. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is because we have to turn in all of our summer school stuff on Wednesday. So even if I wanted to teach something on Thursday, I wouldn't be able to, because all my stuff would be turned in by that point. So I really don't have anything for them to do. So that's what Thursday is going to be. I feel like I just rambled all that stuff. I feel like it's mumbled and jumbled all together. So what I planned on doing, y'all, was talk about what we did this week, what we were going to do next week, and how all this testing and summer school stuff worked. They all kind of fumbled in together, so I apologize for that if the explanations of those weren't clear, but it is what it is. And that's how it came out, and that's how I'm gonna leave it. So that's what we've got going on for us at summer school. All in all, though, it's been a really good time. I'm still gonna vlog for next week, just kind of give the wrap up and kind of show you what we've been doing and all that kind of stuff. So be looking forward to that. But I'm going to go ahead and head out because it is 1:45. Dismissal ended 15 minutes ago, and I'm ready to enjoy my weekend. So thank you guys so much for sticking with me to the end. If you like this video, please like, please comment, please share, please subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.